Now the big picture learner, the bottom line guys, the big picture, they like to spread out. They like to see everything like one big whole. And details bog them down. And typically, the details aren't important. We'll worry about that later. Right now, we'll do the big picture. What you see on the next slide here is a nice array of candy. Josh, my son, was given the job at the middle school Valentine party to arrange the candy. So you see he's made a flag using the Hershey Kisses, and he made a little bridge with the nerd boxes and other little stair steps with miniature candy bars. And the M&Ms with different colors are spiraled and spaced perfectly. Now, Josh is colorblind, but he can see differences in hues, and it would have been so much faster to dump them in a bowl with a spoon. But Josh was not given specific instructions. He was just told, Josh, you're in charge of getting the candy out. One of the funniest things to me is that they ate that after knowing he had to touch every single one. And the table probably wasn't wiped off first. Middle schoolers, we love them. They'll eat, no leftovers. You finish dinner and you think, wow, there's going to be a lot of dishes. No, wait, he's in a growth spurt. I'm going to leave it for a half hour. He'll be back, and sure enough, polish it off. Then you don't have to put the leftovers away. So the big picture learners, they like having those alternatives and being open to learning in different ways and not rigidly structured to a set response. They can lose track of time. So I recommend when you give your kids a break from different school subjects to put a time limit on that break. Because even though they can lose track of time, they can become very engaged in projects and things and focus very strongly, and it's hard for them to let go of that, to come back to something they may find of less interest. So in our house, when you had a break during the school day, you were not allowed to do video games or computer. And Legos even was a questionable activity because you could get so involved. And I had a long list of things they could do during school, and they could do the other things after school hours. But to keep the breaks short and not lose them completely, because if you announce the break is over, they can be genuinely surprised. What? It's been 15 minutes already? It didn't feel that long. These are the kids who are risk takers. They don't mind trying things out. They think in possibilities. They think, why not? What if we did this way? What if we did it that way? You know, I used to call Josh, time for lunch, and I'd have fixed his favorite lunch. And he'd say, hang on. And I'd say, well, it's ready now. Come on. And he said, how about if we do this first? I'm like, wait, why is everything a negotiation with you? It felt for a long time like his conversational style was argumentative. It took me a long time to figure out it really, in his mind, wasn't. He wasn't intending it to be that way. And I asked him when he got a little bit older, Josh, why do you argue with me over everything? Why do you always question everything I say or ask you to do? And he looked really genuinely surprised. He wasn't faking it. He said, Mom, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to be arguing with you. It's just that I had ideas that I thought you hadn't thought of yet, and so I was telling them to you. Which he's right. He always thinks of things I don't think of. He still thinks of things. But I had to explain to him, sometimes I just need you to say okay and do what I ask. You know, choose other times to have these discussions and pull my thoughts out. But it wasn't, you have to look at the heart, and sometimes it's hard, but the more you're with the kids, the more you can discern. And if you're not sure, pray for wisdom, because God gives generously, and He loves your kids too. Figure out, is the intent to push buttons, or is the intent to, I have ideas you hadn't thought of and I wanted to share them with you? Because you're established in their mind as someone who cares about their ideas. And they want that kind of exchange. So sometimes it's the approach, but look at the heart. Because the heart intention might not be a match. So these are the what if kinds of thinkers. And Josh wondered what it would be like to have lobster claws instead of hands. So he found a roll of duct tape, and he taped his fingers together and left his thumbs free. And you can see that he came to me because he was stuck in the duct tape. And then I said, hey Josh, I'm gonna get the camera. So then he posed, like, ta-da, here are my lobster claws. He has sensory issues, so he's sniffing the duct tape. And then he asked me to cut him free, and I said, no, you figure it out. Because that's the kind of challenge this kind of learner likes. You problem solve it. You come up with a solution. It would be easy enough for me to snip away, but you figure it out. So you see him in the last slide with the scissors, trying to figure out how lobsters might use scissors and cut if they were given that opportunity. So don't always jump in and give your kids the answers, especially these big picture learners. Say, what do you think we could do? How do you think we could do it? You know, I found a hidden talent in Josh for packing coolers like nobody's business. It's like one of those wooden puzzles that I can never get back together and I have a hard time even getting apart. That's what my cooler looks like when Josh is done. He has that eye for the visual spatial things to be able to see how things will fit together. Here you go, here's a pile, make it fit. You know, give them some challenges and let them shine. These are also the kids who tend to skip the planning. They start writing things down before you have told them what you want them to do. One way you can avoid that is to not give them the paper or the book until you're done talking, so they can't just jump in. And then sometimes they learn, oh, I was doing it wrong, I have to go back and redo it. But they want to just jump, oh, I think I know what to do. Just get a glimpse, get the big picture, and dive right in. These also, even though they are very deep thinkers, very creative thinkers, sometimes they tend to process slowly. I think their thoughts kind of go off like spokes on a bike tire. They have a main idea, but then it shoots off in a lot of different directions and possibilities. And it takes them a while to narrow out and eliminate some of those and come down to the ones they really want to pursue, or possibly the ones you would like them to pursue as you keep bringing those to their attention. So they process slowly, and that is why they can skip around and come back to things. Work on this for a little bit, let that rest, work on this for a little bit, go do a chore, come back, but the whole time their brain continues to incubate that idea. They're still processing it. So if you're not this way, this is very hard to do. Personally, you'll find out in the next kind of learner that I'm the detail learner and I like checklists, and I really like to start and finish and go straight through. I love that. Sometimes I write things on my list just so I can cross it off. Things I've already done. Like, oh, and I did this. Check. I love that. But not these guys. These guys do not have a mental checklist that they're keeping track of, because it's not the product that intrigues them, it's the process. And the process can take a while. But if you're not this way, you have to be aware if you have a child who is this way. Or if you're this way and your child's more like I am, we'll get to that too. But be aware and start looking at your child and observing them that way. So they can multitask. They can simultaneously process. You know, Scott could be sitting at the computer and having the radio on with one sports game and the TV in another room with another sports game. And I would come in and think, nobody's in here, and turn off the TV, and he'll say, hey, I was listening to that. Like, oh, I thought you were doing something on the computer and listening to the radio. I was doing that too. Like, really? Can you really follow all that? And he'll go, 3rd down, 4 to go, turn it on, please. Okay, my brain could not do that. I have to eliminate. No, here's my one track that I can go on. But not everybody is like that, so be open to those kinds of differences. And the big picture learners often tend to remember things the best by starting with something recent. This also ties in to making something meaningful for them. And I would say, when you're teaching something in history, for example, find a current event that ties in somehow to what you're learning about in history. And history does repeat itself, so usually you can find some instance of an overthrow of power or something that happened in a battle that you can tie in to what they're learning about. So you're tying in current knowledge with something new to make it meaningful and help them make those connections. That it does matter, and we learn from those experiences.